Hi FlossTube, it's Rolanda Stitching Addict here with you. It has been a while since I've updated and I'd really like to apologize for that. I will explain why at the end of this video. It's a rather long life update this time around. Yeah, basically life exploded, and then now it's finally starting to right itself. And so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I am stitching a little bit again. I haven't been for a while, but now I'm back into stitching and feeling better. And yeah, anyway, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. Yeah, just a really bad cold. So anyway, yeah, so I will start with finishes. I have two of those because it has been a minute, you guys, since I've seen you. I'd like to welcome all my new subscribers. I know there haven't been very many this time, but I'd like to welcome you anyway. You'll have to excuse my brain. Yeah. And welcome back to everybody else who has been watching for a while. I am a little squished right now simply because this is the only way that I can get my laptop in a position that'll allow me to film. So I know I showed you guys Metal Dragon Affairs that I was stitching for a classmate of mine. It is finished. I couldn't remember if I'd shown it to you or not, but here you go. I haven't sent it off yet. I did use all the called for silk lame braid and everything, and all the sparkles and all the things. There's no beads on here, but there is sparkle. So yeah, this one is done. I'm just going to roll this up because it'll be too awkward if I don't do that. I have another finish as well. I started it and finished it all in a week. I'll explain that after. It was due to life events, but yeah, it is my Christmas, Stony Creek Christmas one. It's the one that was just released for this year. It's this one. It's done except for the two little heart buttons that go in the wreaths. I didn't use called for any, unless, I didn't use the called for, hand-dyed threads. Wow, brain not functioning. I've had 2 classes today, and so my brain is a little warped. But anyway, here it is. The buttons are not yet available here in Canada. I would have to order them directly from Stony Creek. And the button total is $2.50 US. The shipping here to Canada is almost $20, and I'm just not willing to spend that kind of money. So yeah, I'm just gonna roll that up. I did start something new, something that I've had kitted up for a bit already. Sleeping Beauty by Joan Elliott Designs. Wow, talking is hard. Yeah, it's still on my... I'm just putting that in there so that it stays. I'm going to move my laptop here because it just makes things easier than me taking it off of my stand. So here's where I am. I'm using 32 count Sprite by Picture This Plus. I'm doing it 2/2. Yes, you're seeing my very messy DVD area. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the work on this one. I'm about half done. The first page. It's full. The first number of pages are full coverage. So yeah, it's I'm doing that while watching my TV in the evenings, and also while I was recovering from a cold, I was also doing that. I have a wee little bit of haul. It's not a whole lot. I have this one right here. This is, hang on, let me read my thing here. This is Phantom by Pole Stitches, I believe. Anyway, Phantom. This was supposed to be for the nativity, like the Glendon Place nativity. Oh, why am I putting it back in the bag? The nativity stitch, but I got the half yard from Lizzie B's. And so, yeah, and this is a 32 count fat quarter. So that'll just go into my drawer for another project. This is my Hand-Dyed by Rolanda floss of the month. I'm no longer getting this. Student budget, what can I say? These are very spring colory. And then I have my Gentle Arts monthly threads. I have Harvest Basket, Linen, Loganberry, Maple Syrup, and Mediterranean Sea. I'm not doing these in any kind of order. I'm literally just taking them out. I honestly haven't even taken these out of their packaging yet. It's been a rough few months. Got Lemon Drop, Lexington Green. It's like a gray green. It's not showing up very well, but it is 7:30 in the evening here. Lavender Potpourri. This is also more gray than it's showing up. Lamb's Wool. Liberty. This is more gray too. Lighting here is not great right now. And Hyacinth. Again, it's more gray than it's showing up. Kiwi. Lagoon. Jasmine. This is more purple than it's showing up. It's showing up very pink. Island Blue. Yeah, so that's all the stuff that I've gotten over the last number of months. It's, yeah. Yeah, so that's it for cross-stitch related stuff for this time around. Sorry, I'm just going to turn my phone off. My Instagram is going nuts. Yeah. Now on to a life update. The last time that I saw you guys, it had just been, I had just lost Max, and after that I went into, I guess, hyper homework mode, I guess. I had a lot of homework that had kind of been left because I was in no headspace to actually do anything. But yeah, that was that. And then my term ended on September 23rd was my last day of classes. So all my finals and everything had to be done before then. And on September the 12th, I was having breakfast. I was getting ready for my day. I had a full day of classes. I had 3 classes that day, and starting in the morning and going until midnight. So I was getting ready for the day, having coffee, just kind of doing your morning thing. And then I got a text message from my mom saying that she and Dad had been in a car accident. And after that, like, she had told me that they were going to the garden. They had a garden out in the country at my mom's cousin's house, and like out in a field. And so they were headed over there, and they got into an accident on the way there. So I dropped everything. I took off. I couldn't get a hold of my mom after that. After that one message. But since I knew where they were headed, I could at least track, like, I knew what route they would take. So yeah, when I got there, the car was in the ditch, and this is out in the country. So these ditches are not shallow. They are fairly deep. And a group of first responders that were coming here to my city from another town, they were coming here to my city for a training day. And I guess these guys, they had carpooled, and they saw the entire accident happen. So the first responders were there like instantly, and they all had like their walkie-talkie two-way radio deals on them. So ambulances and everything came out. My parents weren't like, the car was still on its wheels. They said that my parents, they had kind of drifted off the road. It's a two-lane highway, and they had just kind of drifted off the road to the right. Like, they were driving on the right-hand side. They drifted off into the ditch on their side of the road, and they had just drifted off onto the shoulder and kept going in the ditch, hit there was a driveway, and there's a bit of a, it's a bit of a rise. Here's the ditch and here's the driveway kind of a thing. Obviously not to scale. Anyway, they hit the culvert there, and ramped over the driveway, and were airborne and landed in the ditch on the other side of the driveway. And the vehicle stayed on its wheels. and everything. The vehicle didn't look damaged at all. I mean, like there were some plastic bits were bent, but other than that, couldn't see anything. My dad was very disoriented. He had been driving. He was very disoriented. My mom's hand was really, really swollen. The ambulance arrived there within a few minutes of me getting there. It was about a 10-minute drive from my house, I think. Anyway, I don't remember. That whole day, just kind of, yeah. Anyway, so, because it was out in the country, I was trying to get a hold of my uncle, my dad's brother, to let him know what had happened, because I knew I would need his help, because both my parents had been in the vehicle. So I knew that I would need his help with getting some of the stuff figured out. But because it was really bad reception out in the country, I ended up just sending him a WhatsApp voice message, and that went through, but a phone call wouldn't. Like, that's how weird the reception is out there. But anyway, both my parents, they went to the hospital in ambulances. My dad, because he was the driver and he had a stroke back in 2018, they were being excessively cautious. My mom, they x-rayed her hand and everything. Nothing, they didn't find a break or anything. So they said her hand wasn't broken. It was just very, very blue and very, very swollen. And like, it literally looked like a great big bubble, like a ball. And yeah, I'm very surprised that they said nothing was broken. But anyway, they kept my dad there under observation for a little while. They ran a CT scan and they did blood work and they checked him and all the things. Because he had been the driver, right? So they wanted to know why the accident had happened, because there was no clear reason behind it. Anyway, this was, I left my house roughly 8:30 in the morning. My parents were released from the hospital, from the ER at around noon, maybe a bit after I drove my parents back to their house, and Mom and I started getting like simple lunch stuff together, like soup, like just those packages of noodle soup. And I was just going to have like a grilled cheese, like a gluten-free grilled cheese. And my dad, when he came in, he went to the washroom because, well, he'd been in a hospital for hours and hooked up to IVs and all the things. And he hadn't been in the washroom for very long. We heard him call out. I went to the bathroom door to ask him what he needed, thinking that toilet paper was gone or something. And then I just heard this thunk. And I opened the door. He hadn't locked the bathroom door. So I opened the door and he had collapsed on the floor. I screamed for Mom. Mom came over. We tried waking him up. We couldn't wake him up. So I told Mom to keep trying to wake him up. And like, we found out that when we touched his nose, he hates that. But that was making him aware. So I ran out. I called 911. The ambulance was there in less than 5 minutes at my parents' house. And they came in. We explained what had gone on, that they had been in an accident and blah, blah, blah. And that he had just collapsed. And so they started doing all their tests and checks and all the things. And they were having trouble keeping him conscious. And so they had him on one of those AFib machines, I think they're called, or whatever, those portable shocky things. Anyway, and then they ended up calling fire and rescue because of the way that my parents' house is designed. You can't really get a person out of their bathroom. Like it's very poor design, as far as that goes. But anyway, fire and rescue was there in just a couple minutes. Sorry, I have something on my eye. And then the fire and rescue guys, they came, they helped get my dad onto that yellow clicky backboard thing. And they helped carry him outside to the stretcher because they couldn't get a stretcher into my parents' house because of the way that it's done. Anyway, they got him on the stretcher and then they took him out to the ambulance and they were doing more work on him there. I called my uncle again and now I had coverage so I could let him know what was going on. Mom and I got water bottles and stuff ready and jumped back into their vehicle this time, not mine. As soon as the ambulance and fire trucks and first responders and everybody kind of cleared out and the ambulance went to the hospital, we followed the ambulance to the hospital and then we were in the ER waiting for news, and then I had to contact the school and let them know what was going on and why I wasn't going to be in classes. I sent a general email out to my instructors, to student services and whatever. Then I called the school just to explain. I had to call my mom's cousin who was expecting them and they hadn't arrived yet. So they needed to know. I had to call my uncle because the RCMP, which is the outside of, they're the national police. Like we have city police and then we have national police, like they're called RCMP. Anyway, because the accident happened outside the city, the RCMP were in charge of the scene. So anyway, the RCMP called my mom and asked her what they wanted to do with the vehicle. And so I called my uncle and he said that he and my cousin who is part of fire and rescue, they would take care of getting the vehicle home to my parents' house. Okay, well, I had taken the keys and the registration out of the vehicle because I didn't know if they would be towing it or what would be going on, and knowing that I would need that stuff later. So I had grabbed that at the scene. Anyway, so I had to leave the hospital, go back to my parents' house, get the keys, the registration, everything, and my uncle met me there at their house. I gave him the house keys, the car keys, the registration, and he and my cousin, they went and they took care of bringing my parents' vehicle back to their house. And they said that there was literally no damage beyond the radiator was a little bit dented and some of the plastic, like the plastic guard thing on the bottom was bent. It needs to be replaced, but not broken. But because it's plastic, it has to be replaced for safety reasons. Anyway, so we were at the hospital for, I think at 5. So we got back to the hospital around 1 o'clock-ish. And my dad was admitted. Like he got put onto a heart monitor halter deal thing. He got admitted into the general medical ward. Around 5, he was in his room and everything. So Mom and I went upstairs to his room, and then we said that we would bring him some stuff tomorrow, like the next day to make his whole, there's always things that you need, right? So anyway, he had his phone, he had his charger, and that was basically all he really needed for the night. They were keeping him in for observation. And so we stayed until Dad got his supper, which was around 5:30. Again, we hadn't eaten since breakfast. My parents had breakfast before they left for the garden. I was having breakfast when I got the call. Like, I had literally just finished my breakfast. Not even finished my breakfast. So we hadn't eaten in that time. So, yeah. Mom and I were hungry. Mom couldn't drive. I had to drive because her hand was still a big balloon and everything. So we went by we left the hospital, went by my house to pick up my stuff to stay the night with my mom, because she would need quite a bit of help, because she only had one hand that she could actually do stuff with. And just in case they called from the hospital, it was just easier if I was at their house. And then, so we had supper, and we had kind of sat down to kind of decompress from everything. That was around 8 by the time we got around to actually sitting down for the evening to just kind of chill. Yeah. And so we were sitting around just watching YouTube videos, just, trying to relax after all the craziness. It was around 9. I think we had only been sitting down 9:15, something like that. Mom's phone rings, and it was a no caller ID. So that's usually the hospital. Like, it doesn't show up. Doctors, hospitals, doesn't show up as anything. So anyway, my mom picks up the phone, and it's the doctor. And the heart halter monitor thing that my dad had been on, my dad had his heart stopped for 9 seconds. And that's how they found out what had happened in the accident. Because he fainted at home, it was his heart stopping. And they said that he had, like the doctor on the phone call, he said that my dad had bradycardia, which means that his heart was beating too slowly. So yeah, so that was, my dad got moved to the intensive care or specialized care unit or whatever, ICU, SCU, whatever you want to call it. Oh. And so they said, yeah, he's okay. Now we know what's going on. They said we are going to need to put a pacemaker. He's going to need to get a pacemaker. We've talked to the cardiologist, and he gave us the whole rundown of what was going to happen. So we're like, okay. They're like, yeah, his bradycardia had flared up, and it had caused the accident. And so they're like, okay, in the next couple of days, he'll be transferred to Winnipeg in the morning to get a pacemaker put in. He'll come back that evening or that day yet. And then he'll have to be in the hospital for a couple of days. We're like, oh, okay, they're gonna fix this. They're gonna do what they're gonna need to do. And that was all well and good. We're like, okay, little scary, but they've found out what the problem is, so they're going to fix it now. So the next day we brought Dad some clean clothing and stuff that he would need for a bit of a longer stay at the hospital than the overnight that we thought it would be. And yeah, so he was in ICU. We were approved visitors because immediate family, because Canada was still being very cautious with everything. I'll leave it at that. I have my own opinions, but whatever. So yeah, my dad was in ICU for 48 hours. Then they moved him to the regular ward he was on complete bed rest with bathroom privileges. So he could walk to the bathroom, but then straight back to his bed and lay down. Like, he was not allowed to be moving around or anything. And they kept him on the monitor. And they were very closely monitoring him. Like, if any little thing changed, there was a nurse in the room within minutes. Checking him, saying that ICU had called up and said that his heartbeat had picked up or his heartbeat had slowed down, or they asked him if he was getting excited, etc. Anyway, they were keeping a very close eye on him. He ended up being in the hospital so the accident happened on the Monday, and he ended up staying in the hospital until the next week, Wednesday. That's when they did his pacemaker surgery. And then the next day, he was allowed to come home, but he's on very strict rest orders. And so, yeah, I was helping my parents out a lot. So I was doing finals, helping them with basically everything, going to the hospital every day. Luckily, the school understood. I filled out some forms and stuff saying that it was another family emergency. 2 back-to-back is a bit much for anybody, and I was literally at my breaking point. But they said that as long as I got my assignments and finals in, I wasn't required to be in class. And I didn't have to watch the recording because basically all of them were studio sessions and critique sessions. So that was, and the school, they made exceptions for me because of extenuating circumstances, which was great. And then I had the last week of September was my week off between terms. We ended up going to Winnipeg for a shopping day on Tuesday. And remember, my dad had just gotten out of the hospital on the Thursday. It probably wasn't the brightest idea ever. To take dad along. But yeah. Excuse me, the cough just isn't gone yet. So yeah, dad was very, very tired. It took him a couple of days to recover. He was not allowed to drive for 1 week after his surgery. So he was very happy to be able to drive again. Yeah, my week off did not go at all like planned. We had planned to actually go on a week-long road trip to Ontario. But all of that kind of got scrapped when the accident happened. And so, yeah, that's been life. Quite honestly, it's been a bit of a lot, which is why I wasn't stitching for a while, simply because the headspace, it wasn't there. just couldn't do it. I couldn't concentrate on it. It wasn't an unwinding, relaxing thing for me. But yeah, I did stitch the Stony Creek during my week off. And it was just a couple of hours here, an hour there, 15 minutes here. Like, it's one of those simpler patterns, which is nice. Like, it's one of those quick stitches, which is awesome. But yeah, I'm going to keep working on Sleeping Beauty. And that one is really my vibe, my jam at the moment. Other than that, there's not a whole lot. That was my life update. It's a bit much, but that's just been how it is. Things are finally starting to... My personal life is slowing down, but now my school life has gone absolutely haywire nuts. I'm in my final term, and I only have 4 classes, but I have 43 projects to finish in 12 weeks. I am in week 2. So if you do not see me, feel free to leave comments on this video, message me, whatever. But I won't be posting again until at least after Christmas. Simply because I'm going to be in classes until the 23rd. I start working next week again. Yeah, student aid didn't give me any living expenses, and I still have to pay my bills. So I have to work. Luckily, my old boss took me back. I'm going to be working from home. And so it's not difficult work. So hopefully I don't burn out. I appreciate any and all prayers for me to get through this term. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. I'm going to stitch some this evening and relax to kind of unwind after having 2 classes this afternoon. And yeah, it's a bit intense at the moment, but I'll get through it. I'll make it. If anyone is interested in seeing any of my artwork, I will link the Instagram below. I don't post very often, but I do try. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. Happy stitching, and we'll see you next time. Feel free to like and subscribe if you like this video. Bye!